Imagine you're playing a high-stakes game of poker, thinking you finally cornered your rival at the table. You've got the naval blockade in Hormuz set. You've got the region on edge. Then, the door kicks open, and a nuclear-armed neighbor walks in with a suitcase and 13,000 elite troops. Tehran just found out the hard way that while they were watching the waves in the strait, the real move was happening on land. In a stunning geopolitical masterstroke, Pakistan has officially entered the Middle East conflict, and they didn't come to talk. By deploying a massive military force and JF-17 fighter jets directly to Saudi Arabia, Islamabad hasn't just drawn a red line. They've built a nuclear-backed wall around the Iranian regime. The ultimate checkmate has been played, and for the first time in decades, the hunters in Tehran have become the hunted. Welcome back to Geopolitics Decoded US. I'm Marcus. If you're here for the surface-level noise, you're in the wrong place. We're here to decode the tactical shifts that the mainstream media is too afraid to touch. Today, we are analyzing the Dhahran Deployment and how a new economic land corridor has turned Iran's survival into a Pakistani hostage situation. Before we dive into the nuclear math of this two-front war, hit that subscribe button. Join our community of strategic thinkers and help us keep these briefings independent. Now, let's look at the deployment that changed everything. The Dhahran Deployment, the silent arrival. Let's talk about the unthinkable move. While the global media was obsessed with every ripple in the Strait of Hormuz, 13,000 of Pakistan's most battle-hardened, elite troops quietly touched down in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia. This wasn't a PR stunt or a friendship drill. This was a total strategic realignment. Imagine the shock in Tehran's command centers. One day they are posturing against a naval blockade, and the next, they realize a nuclear-armed neighbor has essentially parked a mid-sized city of combat-ready soldiers right on their western flank. Islamabad didn't just send boots on the ground, they sent a message written in nuclear ink. By declaring Saudi security an absolute red line, Pakistan has effectively extended its nuclear umbrella over the kingdom. Think of it as a regional version of NATO Article 5, but with a much shorter fuse and a lot more desert dust. For the IRGC, this is a literal nightmare. They aren't just facing the US Navy carrier groups anymore. They are staring at a military that knows exactly how to fight in this terrain, backed by a country that isn't afraid to play the nuclear card if its interests are threatened. The buffer zone is gone, and the chess pieces are now staring Tehran right in the face. The JF-17 Thunder, air superiority redefined. But Islamabad didn't just send infantry, they brought the infantry. The JF-17 Thunder, they brought the Georgia's people of Jays. They were lively to believe. But Islamabad more than fortunately to play the movie to the JF. The JF-17 Thunder, they brought the infantry were similar leader. But Islamabad known as a very superiority redefined. But Islamabad known as a very pure book ability that they did not realize to joy them, but it loved them to be done. The JF-17 Thunder, they brought the Georgia's people of JF, that they just not happen is a maze new thing. Is their word whatever it loved per implemently done. But Islamabad that in opely define the move, they fightly take it in anything done. The JF-17 Thunder, they brought the Georgia's people of JF, that they did not realize to joy them, but Islamabad didn't just send it in the movie. But Islamabad known as a very superiority redefined. But Islamabad didn't only begin to effectively they brought the infantry. They brought the Thunder. Along with those 13,000 troops came squadrons of JF-17 fighter jets, now stationed at strategic Saudi air bases. Now, some critics like to point out that the JF-17 isn't an F-35, and they're right. But in the narrow, high-tension airspace of the Persian Gulf, you don't always need a multi-billion-dollar stealth jet. You need a reliable, high-tech platform that can deploy precision-guided munitions and keep the IRGC's drone swarms at bay. The presence of Pakistani wings over Saudi oil fields changes the math of any Iranian air offensive. It's no longer just about dodging US Patriot missiles, it's about engaging a pilot who is trained specifically for this theater. These jets represent more than just airframes. They are the teeth of this new alliance. By integrating Pakistani air power into the Saudi defense grid, they've created a multi-layered shield that makes any Iranian strike a suicidal mission. Tehran's drones are suddenly looking a lot more like expensive clay
Breaking
pigeons.
news, the markets are crashing.
We are moving into the
Cannot
most
trust the
devastating
opposition
part
on
of
this.
this
We are seeing
briefing,
unprecedented
how
levels of
Pakistan is
activity.
holding
The president
Iran's
refuses to
entire
comment.
survival hostage without firing a single shot. But before we decode the land corridor trap, I want to hear from the war room. Does the entry of a nuclear-armed Pakistan stabilize the Middle East, or have we just added another layer of danger to an already volatile region? Decode your thoughts in the comments below. The sharpest analysis will be highlighted in our next briefing. If you value this level of independent tactical analysis over the usual mainstream noise, hit the like button and subscribe to Geopolitics Decoded US. It's how we keep the signal loud and the propaganda quiet. Now, let's talk about the economic noose. The economic noose, the land corridor bypass. Now, let's look at the part that doesn't involve missiles, but is arguably more lethal: economics. While the world's eyes are on the naval blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, Pakistan has executed an unthinkable economic bypass. They've opened massive new land corridors that have suddenly become Tehran's only remaining lung. Think about it. With the US and its allies choking the shipping lanes, Iran needs a backdoor for trade, and Islamabad just offered them one. But here's the Marcus translation. This isn't a helping hand, it's a leash. By controlling these land routes, Islamabad has effectively seized control of the Iranian heart rate. It's like being forced to use a high-priced delivery app because every grocery store in your neighborhood is closed. Except the app is owned by the guy who just parked a nuclear-armed tank in your driveway. If Tehran steps out of line in the Gulf, Pakistan doesn't even need to fire a JF-17. They just need to close the border. The Iranian economy wouldn't just stumble, it would flatline instantly. Islamabad has managed to turn Iran's survival into a Pakistani hostage situation without firing a single shot. That, my friends, is how you play the long game. Tehran's dilemma, the two-front terror. This leads us to the ultimate strategic nightmare: encirclement. For decades, Iran has played the regional chessboard by creating buffer zones and using proxies to keep the fight away from its borders. But that script just got shredded. Tehran is now staring at a catastrophic two-front war. To the west, they have the combined naval and air might of the US and its regional allies. To the east, they now have a battle-hardened, nuclear-armed Pakistan that has just planted its flag in Dhahran. It's the military equivalent of being caught in a vice. If the IRGC decides to escalate against Saudi Arabia or the US, they aren't just looking at a few Tomahawk missiles hitting their ports. They're looking at 13,000 elite Pakistani troops sitting right on their southern supply lines, backed by a country that actually has the nuclear checkmate in its back pocket. The safe zones are gone. Every command bunker in Tehran now has to worry about two directions at once, and in modern warfare, that kind of split focus is usually a death sentence. The hunters of the Middle East have officially become the hunted, and the clock is ticking faster than they can react. Nuclear ink, the deterrence wall. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, the one with the radioactive trunk. This isn't just about 13,000 elite troops or some shiny new fighter jets. This is about nuclear ink. Pakistan is the only nuclear-armed state in the Muslim world, and by planting their boots in Dhahran, they've effectively extended a nuclear umbrella over the Saudi oil fields. Think about the math for a second. Usually, when Iran talks about a red line, they're looking at Washington, 7,000 miles away. But Islamabad, they're right next door. By deploying this force, Pakistan has built a deterrence wall that Tehran simply cannot climb. It's one thing to harass a US destroyer in the Gulf. It's an entirely different game to threaten a kingdom guarded by a military that has the ultimate equalizer in its back pocket. This isn't just a defense pact. It's a regional version of MAD, mutually assured destruction, delivered by hand to Tehran's doorstep. Putin and Biden aren't the only ones who can play the nuclear chess game, and Islamabad just moved their queen. The Riyadh-Islamabad axis, a new alliance. What we're seeing is the birth of the Riyadh-Islamabad axis, and it's a nightmare for traditional Western diplomacy. For decades, the Middle East relied on the petrodollar deal, Saudi oil for American protection. But 2026 is a different beast. Riyadh has realized that in a multipolar world, you don't just rely on a superpower across the Atlantic, you buy insurance from the neighborhood tough guy. This is a brotherhood of steel. Saudi Arabia provides the bottomless bank account, and Pakistan provides the battle-hardened muscle and the nuclear deterrent. It's a symbiotic masterpiece. For Tehran, this is the worst-case scenario. They spent decades trying to push the US out of the region, only to find that the vacuum they created was filled by a nuclear-armed neighbor who isn't bound by the same political rules as Washington. This new axis doesn't need permission from a Senate committee to act. They just need a reason. And right now, Iran is giving them 13,000 reasons to stay alert. We're heading into the final briefing, how the rest of the world is reacting to this nuclear-armed gatecrasher. From Washington to Beijing, the panic is real. But before we decode the global fallout, I want to hear from you. Is Pakistan's entry into the conflict a stabilizer that will finally force Iran to the table, or did we just light a fuse that no one can blow out? Decode your thoughts in the comments below. I'm looking for the most cold-blooded tactical takes. If you value this level of raw strategic analysis, hit the like button and subscribe to Geopolitics Decoded US. Help us keep the war room open and independent. Now, let's see how the world reacts when a nuclear power joins a party they weren't invited to. Strategic fallout, the view from the top. So, how is the rest of the world handling this nuclear gatecrasher? In a word, panic. Washington is currently doing a very awkward diplomatic dance. On one hand, they're thrilled to have a nuclear-armed ally guarding the Saudi oil fields. On the other, they've just lost their monopoly on Middle Eastern security. The petrodollar isn't just backed by the US Navy anymore. It's now backed by Pakistani JF-17s. Meanwhile, Beijing is reportedly furious behind closed doors. China relies on Iranian oil and Pakistani stability, and this move puts both in a blender. If the Strait of Hormuz is the world's windpipe, Pakistan just put its hand on the throat. Moscow isn't happy either. Their only major ally in the region, Tehran, is now staring down the barrel of a two-front war they can't win. For the first time in history, the big three are realizing they aren't the only ones who can move the heavy pieces on the board. The era of the superpower monopoly is officially dead. The regional players have taken the wheel, and they aren't asking for directions. The final verdict: checkmate in the desert. This is the reality of 2026. The board has been overturned. By deploying 13,000 elite troops and declaring a nuclear red line, Islamabad hasn't just protected Saudi Arabia, they've rewritten the rules of survival in the Middle East. Tehran is no longer playing a game of cat and mouse with the West. They are trapped in a vice between a US-led blockade and a nuclear-armed neighbor who holds the off switch to their economy. It's a masterpiece of asymmetric strategy. You don't always need to fire a missile to win a war. Sometimes, you just need to show your rival that you've already won the math. Iran is cornered, the safe zones are gone, and the nuclear umbrella now has a distinctly Pakistani tint. The checkmate has been played. The only question left is whether Tehran has the wisdom to fold their hand before the border closes for good. The rules have changed, the pieces have moved, and the mainstream media is still trying to figure out where Dhahran is on a map. But I want to know your final verdict. Did Pakistan just save the Middle East from a regional war, or did they just start the countdown to a nuclear standoff? Decode your thoughts in the comments below. I'm personally jumping in to highlight the sharpest tactical takes. If you value this level of cold-blooded strategic analysis, do us a favor. Hit the like button and subscribe to Geopolitics Decoded US. It's the only way to ensure the signal stays louder than the noise. And for the full-length masterclasses, catch us on Spotify. I'm Marcus. Thanks for standing watch. Stay safe and stay sharp.